Welcome to Just the Fit. Sometimes on Mythic Muscle, I'll use specific verbiage or talk about modalities that not everyone knows. And maybe you do know of them, but you'd like to understand them just a bit more intimately. Here's to you. On Just the Fit, I'll be focusing on the fitness part of Fitness and Folklore. These episodes are a little bit more pragmatic in nature, and if I do my job well, you'll come away with a greater understanding. If you're looking for some myth, this totally isn't for you, but Just the Myth, the sibling to this series, definitely is. Of course, if you need a bit of both, Mythic Muscle's still there waiting for you. And hey, if you're not interested in fitness at all and you're still listening to support me, you've got a very, very special place in my heart. Thank you. If you want to support me further, you can find me on nearly every social media platform. Patreon, my preferred platform, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Instagram by searching for Mythic Muscle Podcast and looking for the helmet crossed with the barbell and the microphone. Without further ado, here's Just the Fit Episode 5, Stretch-mediated Hypertrophy. Man, I feel like I just said 3 buzzwords out loud for the sake of the algorithm. Which I suppose is partly true, as stretch-mediated hypertrophy is all the rage right now. You know a concept is worth investigating if there's 2 groups of people trying to disprove each other with slews of evidence-based studies as their ammunition. This episode is going to be the culmination of my research and anecdotal experience, so if you're part of the anti-stretch-mediated hypertrophy club, you for sure want to click on a different episode of mine. Not someone else's though, cause I need the views, man. Let's break it down. Stretch-mediated hypertrophy is easily boiled down to this. Weighted tension plus a deep stretch on a muscle induces a massive hypertrophy response. The easiest way to represent this, think of a bicep curl. The lengthened position of the bicep is when the hand is near the hip, and the shortened position of the bicep is when the hand is near the shoulder. When is the bicep curl at its most difficult? If you're thinking anything but the first third of the exercise, you're probably training your biceps incorrectly. Physically, you have to exert a vastly greater amount of energy and therefore induce a vastly greater amount of muscle damage by recruiting more of the muscle at the very start of the exercise, in the lengthened position. The theory holds as follows. Continual training within this deep stretch position, in which the muscle is at its most lengthened, will yield greater hypertrophic results than an exercise taken to a completely shortened muscle position. Thus we get the name, stretch-mediated hypertrophy. There's plenty of new literature supporting this theory, with a plethora of studies doing direct comparisons between exercises performed at lengthened versus shortened positions, and for the majority of muscles, lengthened positions vastly outperform shortened positions in resulting strength and hypertrophy. The exact mechanism for why this is the case is not specifically known. There's a bunch of common sense theories affixed to it, like if something is harder, it's probably more beneficial to do, and to that end, I mostly agree. But there's another aspect to stretch-mediated hypertrophy that I don't often see anyone talking about. Say for example, you take a completely untrained 50-year-old man. You put him on the dip bar and tell him to slowly lower himself to the bottom position as low as his shoulders will physically allow. Chances are, if he's really untrained, he'll plummet straight to the bottom and get horribly injured. Alternatively, he'll stop rather short, stating his shoulders don't allow him to get any further to the floor. Now take an Olympic gymnast, tell him to get onto the dip bar and slowly lower himself to the bottom position as low as his shoulders will physically allow. Chances are that Olympian's knees are touching the goddamn floor and he didn't get terribly disfigured at the end of it. Now say both of these people fell down some stairs. The Olympian catches himself at the bottom of his shoulder position by grabbing the railings on either side. He's safe, his arms are at full extension, and he's well deep into the stretch. The untrained 50-year-old man, though, grabs both the railings, can't stop himself, and tears both pecs or dislocates both shoulders. What's my point here? There's an inherent safety that comes as a benefit of training in a deep stretch. The more the muscle is used to the lengthened position, the less likely it is to be injured. Add weight on top of this, and now the sheer forces of your own body paired with gravity aren't enough to cause injury in those positions. Strengthen and lengthen, boys. That was weird. Either way, posturally speaking, if you're inflexible, you're definitely extremely weak in stretch positions, and thusly at a higher risk of injury. Employing stretch-mediated hypertrophy just makes you more robust, and longevity should be the end goal for any fitness enthusiast. So not only is stretch-mediated hypertrophy appearing to be pretty damn good at building muscle, it's also very likely to keep the injuries at bay. I find it difficult to not recommend full ranges of motion, and exceeding full ranges of motion as well. If done safely, deep, painful stretches beyond a traditional full range seem to be extremely potent stimulus for the muscle. And in my personal anecdotes, my pulling strength increased wildly when I let the weight pull my shoulders nearly out of their sockets on the lat pull-down, the seated row, and the chest-supported row. I'm not talking about like 5 to 10 pound gains, I'm talking about 40 to 50 pound gains in the span of a couple of months. It's serious work. Stretch-mediated hypertrophy is super simple, and so far in all of the studies out there doesn't seem to be any real downside, only benefits. But with the relatively limited amount of data out there, I cannot conclusively confirm that to be the case. We don't know yet. The theory and studies look really great, and common sense has me following along, nodding my head in complete and total fangirl style. But time will tell. So I've made my case. You've got an understanding on what it is, but how do you actually employ it? Is it as simple as just stretching the muscle to its fullest? Sort of, actually. Here's what I would recommend you do. If you're a person who loves throwing weights around and maybe isn't super hot on the technique side of things, be extremely careful with this. As I've alluded to earlier, chances are, if you're not training in these deep stretch positions, you're drastically weaker than you are in the more shortened positions. It's common sense, really. Potent example of this. I used to rep the 90s on the incline dumbbell press, I started employing stretch-mediated hypertrophy, and now, after a few weeks, I'm able to consistently rep out the 50s, and likely will be raising the weight shortly. That's a hell of a jump backwards. If I tried to use the 90s with the current form I use on the 50s, I'd, without a shadow of a doubt, get injured. Kinda goes without saying, but you're gonna drop a few ego points here for sure. But you shouldn't care about that, because while you're jacked and everyone else around you looks the same, you'll get those points back in excess. Let's use that incline dumbbell press example. Set up in your normal incline dumbbell bench position, bench at 30 to 45 degrees, dumbbells at your sides or on your knees. I prefer to just curl the weight up and lean back into the bench rather than throw it up with my knees. I'm uncoordinated as all hell, sue me. Do a quick press to the top, don't count it as a rep, and then slowly lower the dumbbells to your normal bottom position. You should be using drastically lighter weights here. For most people, this bottom position will be just at the pec. Instead, drive your elbows further down and pull the dumbbells to the outside of your shoulders. You'll start to feel this huge stretch and it will be a little painful. This is why lightweight is so important, because if you screw this up, you won't make one rep without injury. Hold the weight in that new bottom position for 1 to 2 seconds, and then explode to the top position, repeat for reps. Bing bada boom, we're stretch-mediated hypertrophying. And on the last rep, going to the absolute lowest I can and holding it. I saw C-Bum do it, so it probably works. This is terrible logic, don't use it everywhere. It hurts. Really, really bad. But my shoulders have never felt more stable, and I'm much more confident in their mobility. So far, I've taken a pretty huge hit to my strength, right? Nope. My incline barbell bench press has gone up considerably. Even though I've lost strength in the incline dumbbell press, I've gained it significantly on a lift I care way more about. It's pretty dope stuff. Resistance training in general is excellent for longevity. I'd be more than ecstatic if we were able to add another layer onto that and really push the boundaries of human endurance. It's your decision, and I'd always recommend taking anything anyone says online straight to the source that they're extrapolating from. Read the meta-analyses for yourself and draw your own conclusions on the proposed theories. With that, I have been your host, Benjamin Cloud. This has been Just the Fit on the Mythic Muscle Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a phenomenal day, a killer lift, or, if it's a rest day, try to do a little stretching. Probably won't hurt. Take care, folks. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. For only $3 a month, you get Discord access, and you buy me a protein bar. $5 a month gets you Discord access with special colors and emotes, blooper reels, a shout out from me, and transcripts of each episode. $10 a month gets you all of that noise, a vote in our monthly poll, a personalized 10-second clip of whatever you want me to say, and every dollar spent at that tier goes right back into the podcast so that I might bring you a better listening experience. Follow my socials. You can find me on pretty much every platform by searching for Mythic Muscle Podcast and looking for the helmet crossed with the barbell and the microphone. If you made it this far, you're my favorite type of human. I hope you have a wonderful day, a fantastic lift, or if it's a rest day, you get some quality relaxation time. Thank you.